You can't hide.
Hello. Oh, you just ruined the intro. Thank you, Cinderin. This is We Say Things episode 12. My name is Sunsfan. Joining me is Cinderin. This is the worst intro we've done, but luckily for us, it's sponsored by Noble Chair still. So thank you to them. As always, this podcast is available on Google, Apple, Spotify, everything. I keep seeing comments on YouTube. So where do you guys have it on Spotify yet? I'm like, dude, literally the intro of every freaking podcast we say it's on Spotify. Yes. Now that I say that, everyone's going to keep asking just to be funny. Cinderin, how are you doing, friend?
Is it on Spotify?
Thanks, buddy. Really appreciate you you waking up for this.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm being told by chat that I look like a hobo today, so I can appreciate that. Good morning, everyone.
For the audio listeners, I can say Cinderin actually looks beautiful.
I look beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Would you like to read some reviews before we get started with the podcast, Cinderin?
Sure thing. I hope my allergy won't mess me up too much today.
I'm sure
it
you'll
didn't
be fine.
last time. I warned people last time, and then I had no reaction during the podcast, but I had right before. So maybe my mind and my body just goes into like, oh, you're on, man. This
What are
is
you
serious
allergic
mode.
to
Now you can't
exactly?
sneeze.
Just the world?
Pollen.
You should come to a place where they don't have trees, like Arizona.
Grass, birch, and what's it called? You know, the very little like
Dandelion?
Dust mites or whatever that you have like all around you in your apartment. Like if it's dusty.
You're allergic to dirt?
Let me look up the word for this. Yeah, it's
So
a real
Nikki is
mystery that I can
actually
work with
allergic.
you, actually.
Nikki gets the same allergies, like similar symptoms as you, it seems. And it turns out
They're called dust mites. Okay.
Like, have you been to the doctor before to get this tested out of curiosity?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. And they haven't offered you any medication or whatever?
I have some pills that I can take that take a bit of time to work, but I only really want to use them if it's like bad, because they have like they slow you down a little bit, I think, and I also have a suspicion that they might affect, I don't know, how well I sleep or something. I'm not sure about it, honestly. It's like my allergy is not that serious. I just sneeze sometimes. It's just annoying if you're doing a podcast, you know. That's
right. So Nikki went to the doctor to see what she's allergic to, because she only gets it like 4 or 5 months out of the year for the most part. Turns out she's allergic to like 3 specific trees. Yeah. So they've been injecting her. She has to give herself injections for like a year and a half to build up immunity. So in a year and a half, she won't be allergic anymore. You should consider this.
You can vaccinate against it. I know. I actually thought about it this year, if I should start doing it. I think it takes 3 years for my stuff or something. But
yeah, that's a good investment, my friend. All right, read some goddamn reviews, Cinderin.
Okay. We got one from... Wait, why do you... Oh, I see. Okay. We got one from... Man, they're all 5 stars, dude. Like, what are we doing right? I don't know.
Great.
Like, why do people like this? If I wanted to hear this much complaining, 5 stars, by G-Dub, I would play NA pubs. That's also my experience with playing NA pubs, so yeah, that sounds about right. Coincidentally, Sunsfan is also NA, and he's the guy complaining on this podcast, so there's probably something about that.
I don't actually complain in game, though, to be fair. I'm a good guy in game, for the most part.
You also don't play game. You play Dota Underlords. You play a one-on-one game where you can't chat.
You can hit yo, and you can be very toxic by hitting yo at the right time.
Okay. All right.
Believe me.
That's very...
Keep
very
going,
limited.
Cinderin.
All right, we got one more called Pogcast by Keep It Up 50. It says 10 out of 10 best movie review podcast. I don't know what this Dota thing they talk about is, though. See, this is something that I would find interesting is if you listen to this podcast without being into Dota, I would love to have a comment from you. Like, if you actually found it without being a Dota fan. Huh?
Would you actually believe them? I don't know. That's tough
Nobody
to say.
lies on the internet.
That's true.
Next, you do too. You do too, and then move on.
All right, life-changing, 5 stars. This is from Gopher Everett. My brother is a young Danish boy. He's very clean and good, but he never learned how to swim. My brother overheard Cindermen discussing his own swimming experiences and the art of not drowning. We gathered all the bathing animals we could find and tossed them into a local swimming basin. Then my brother drove straight into the deep end. Truly, because of this podcast, my life will never be the same again. So, did he die? That's what I took from it, that he drowned. Thank you, friend.
Well, it says he was finally motivated to learn the art of not drowning.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe he just didn't learn. That's true.
All right. And then the last review of the week we have here for the NA audience, since that's all I can see, as we talked about last week, from DDB Ruined GOT. Good is the title, 5 stars. My previous review was not posted. Thank you so much for your great review, sir. Really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Terrific. All right, moving on, Synderin. It's funny that I've been getting a lot of comments about how much people enjoy me explaining the NBA to you, by the way. I've been getting a lot of comments about it. Okay. We have more drama in the NBA, Synderin.
Oh, I can't wait for this one.
So, Kawhi Leonard, okay?
Kawhi?
Kawhi Leonard.
His name is literally Kawhi.
Yes, it's literally Kawhi. Tell me when I can move on from that. Tell me when that sinks in for you.
I'm still recovering. Is he Japanese?
No, he is not. He's American.
So his name is Kawhi Leopard.
Leonard.
It says leopard here.
That's a lie. All right, so let me paint you a little picture about this guy, just to give you an idea of how dramatic the NBA can be. Okay, there's an organization called the San Antonio Spurs. You've heard of them, maybe? They won 5 They won 5 championships over the course of however many years. They're considered like the creme de la creme of organizations, right? They treat their players right. They end up drafting people in like terrible picks, and they end up making them amazing, like Hall of Famers. Everybody is very disciplined. Okay, it's like one of those teams that's just like they're the good guys, supposedly. So Kawhi Leonard was drafted late in the first round, which is typically you're going to find like a serviceable player. Ends up being a top 5 player. You could say it's great scouting by them, whatever the case may be. He won a championship. When did this guy
get drafted?
This was like, wow, that's a good maybe.
Okay, many years
8 to 10 years ago, something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
So he was drafted late. They won a championship with him, and he got Finals MVP in like his second year or something crazy. Okay.
Would you say he's got less Kawhi over the years, or is he just as Kawhi?
No, he's gotten more Kawhi actually.
More Kawhi.
Yeah, and he actually gets this interesting reputation of one of the few players in the NBA that is an introvert, which I can relate to, and I think a lot of gamers can relate to. Like a lot of people
do find that Kawhi, so that's not surprising.
So, like a lot of NBA players are like these macho guys, alpha males, if you will. Kawhi he's not that kind of guy. He's very quiet. So there was one year he got injured, and he refused to come back, and there was all this back and forth between him and the organization, and he thought they were trying to force him back, and they thought he was trying to fake it, or I don't know the exact story. It boils down to the fact that he forced his way out. They had to trade him. He said he didn't want to be there anymore, which is like shocking in and of itself, okay, for the Spurs to have a player like that. So they finally trade him at the beginning of this last season. He went to the Toronto Raptors, who are this team that always fail in the playoffs, always just get swept in the first or second round. They just, every year, it doesn't matter how good they are, they just get swept.
There.
They always get to the playoffs, but they always get wrecked real bad. So they get Kawhi Leonard, and he only has 1 year left on his contract. So it's a huge risk for them to trade for him, right? Because they give up some assets, and they get this amazing player, but they can't control where he goes at the end of the season because he becomes a free agent. He goes there. They win a championship. They just won the championship like a few weeks ago. First championship ever for the Toronto Raptors, which as a Suns fan makes me very jealous. Very happy, though, because that was an awesome run. He then now leaves in free agency to what everybody thought was going to be the LA Lakers, which I was dreading. I was hoping he was going to stay with Toronto, but he goes to the LA Clippers. And the craziest thing about this, Cinder, which you're not going to understand at all, he somehow coordinated a trade from a player that's under contract on another team. He's like, LA Clippers, if you get this guy, which you're going to love this nickname, PG-13, Paul George, if you trade for him, I will sign with you. And that's what happened. So now the NBA is at an all-time most interesting stage I've ever personally seen, because you have no idea who's going to win. There's a lot of teams that are really good, but nobody is like the clear, we're definitely winning the championship. So that is the NBA. But if
everyone is really good, are they really good, or are they all like worse than before? And now there's just not a star team.
Right. So the star team got broken up. So you're right. Nobody's going to be quite as good as that, because that's like an almost impossibility. Like that was just.
But that can't be true, because the star team didn't win.
Because they got injured horribly, Cinderin. The guy tore his goddamn Achilles.
Blame it on the injuries. Kawhi Leonard wasn't that good. It was injuries.
Kawhi Leopard. All right. Yes. Moving on to Dota 2. I'm
Why was
surprised
this
you didn't.
called rant? How is
Nah,
this a rant?
it's not a rant. It's just my rant section in case I feel inspiration. All right.
Imagine being called PG-13 though. Oh my. Okay.
You know what PG-13 is, right?
Yeah, it's when movies or
Yeah. Okay.
Is it both movies and music?
No, just movies.
Or is it only movies where you need to be 13 plus to watch, right?
Yeah.
Without parental guidance or something.
That's right. So he's PG. How would you like to have that nickname, PG-13? And his name is Paul George. He has 2 first names. It's great. Anywho.
Paul George.
Yeah. All right.
I don't
Dota
know what's
2.
worse, PG or Paul George.
Well, PG-13. Let's get it right. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
It could be worse. You could be CP3, Cinderin. That's another one in the NBA. All right, so I released the Aghanims rankings. For those that haven't seen it, sunsfan.gg is the website to see that. Cinderin, thank you for helping out with that list. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Also, thank you to Brax. Please continue.
I looked over it again after you released it, and I feel like there were a couple that were very far from how I remembered. So you probably got influenced last minute somehow. And I was like, I don't know about this one.
Give me one and I'll tell you.
Overall, it was good.
So
now I have to find the lists.
All right, that's fine. Go look it up while I explain something, because I had a very interesting social experiment, I think is the best way to come up with it here, Cinderin. You need to listen to this part. This is actually, you'll find this very interesting. So I've done 2 Aghs rankings before, and obviously this is just like a fluff piece. It's just my opinion for the most part. Of course, the criteria has been different in the past. So a lot of people got, like, there's always going to be people that disagree. That's fine. But they would get really angry. And then I'm like, but you don't understand what my criteria is, because obviously you're rating it, like at the time, for this specific thing, while I'm thinking, like, my criteria is just totally different. Of course, our lists are going to be different altogether. So I was sick and tired of people doing that. I just wanted to be able to filter. I was like, is there a way to filter out the idiots, right? And I found a way, Cinderin.
Oh, really?
So in the criteria, which is the big text at the top, which most people don't read, okay? This is proof of this now. I put some text in the middle that says, if you add this text to the end of any opinion you have, then everyone that has read this will know that you have actually read this. And the phrase was, believe me, I know what I'm talking about. So if anybody wrote their opinion and they ended it with, believe me, I know what I'm talking about, I know that they read it. And 90% of the people that raged about anything that was misplaced or things that they thought were completely off base, they didn't add that because they didn't fucking read the criteria, because they're dumb idiots, Cinderin. I love this. Yeah. This social experiment worked. Big idiots, okay, Cinderin?
Big idiots, okay.
But yeah, there was a couple, like, this is the thing about these Aghs lists, and you know this now after helping me. Like, every time I look at it, I'm like, this could go up, this could go down. Like, it's impossible to settle on a certain thing. And I think I screwed up really bad on, because it's fun. I actually find it a lot of fun. Cinderin.
Oh, you got very defensive really quickly.
Don't put me, it's very fun, you know?
Okay.
But I was wrong. There was one about Medusa, mechanics I got wrong. So that was the big one, I guess.
I remember reading that, yeah.
But other than that, I mean, generally speaking, it's mostly opinion-based.
I mean, I'm scrolling through them right now, and there's like 1 or 2 that I think are definitely too low. But it's like, you know, it really is personal preference too, because I think some other players would say, no, these are bad.
Let me guess, Mars is one of them?
Bristleback.
Okay, I can see that.
First one. Bristleback is really far down. He's like 105 out of how many? 117?
That's probably a little low. Yeah,
and that Aghs is actually pretty good.
I will say though, and like I said in the criteria, most Aghs are actually just good now, right? So the list is even more difficult than before. But a couple that surprised me personally, obviously Wisp. Everybody, all the pros absolutely love this Agh, so I had to put it relatively high. I was surprised that my bias actually worked against me this time, because I've been saying since the beginning I think Pangos is amazing, and everybody thinks it's too low even. Like, wow, okay. I guess I could have put it higher if I wanted.
How high did you put Pango?
It was like in the 40s or something, 50s maybe. I can't remember.
I'm trying to find it.
It's
53.
I really like. And one that really surprised me at first, based on description, was Clinks. Clinks is quite freaking good, which pros seem to agree with as well. So that's...
Well, was it? I think we gave it like a 6 out of 10 when we talked about it, and you put it on rank 40. That's kind of 6 out of 10, right? So, I mean...
I guess that's true if you look at it that way. Yeah.
But
It could even be perhaps a little bit higher than that. But anyway.
It could be higher.
The Aghs list it was a lot of fun. It's a ridiculous amount of work, and it's obviously just fluff. So thank you all too for people that read it. Anywho, moving on, Cinderin. Also, thanks to No Tail for. I should before we move on. No Tail. Oh man, I sent him the list. Did I tell you this?
Yeah. You did.
So I sent No Tail. This was before he got sick at the major. I sent him the list, and he sent me back like a shit ton of notes. And I start reading them. And I'm like, oh my god. He was writing like all these things. Like he was telling me this is wrong. This isn't updated. Blah blah blah. I'm like. So I have this spreadsheet, and it has all the old rankings from literally 3 years ago, and that's the one he read. He didn't click on the sheet. That was the current one.
He read the 7.06 one, right?
Yes. He probably thought I was the biggest idiot ever. And then Weehaw threw in a couple notes as well, so thanks to him. Anyway.
Did he ever give you any updated input on the actual one?
No.
Or the only input he gave
because
was 706. That's funny.
So he gave me input on the wrong one, and then I was like, I'm so sorry. I felt so awkward. And then he got really sick at the major, and then played in the major, and I'm like, all right.
So you basically got him sick.
Maybe. That's
Great.
unclear at this point. Okay, Immortals 2 came out, Cinderin.
Yes, they did.
See, they had Immortals for Dazzle, Timbersaw, Grimstroke, Pugna, Warlock, Luna, and then rares were Lion, the Golden Timber, Golden Luna, and Ember. What did you think of this Immortals versus past ones?
Let me actually just open the client so I have something to compare it to. What I was opening these crates on my stream, right? And I was talking to people, and I don't know, it felt like the day was We All Hate Valve Day, because Morokai was also really disappointing. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But the mindset of the vocal people of the day were in fuck Valve mode, I think. So largely, people seemed very negative about it. And I was like, why do people think these sets are that bad? Like, it was like people were saying, man, this treasure is so disappointing. I really don't like the sets. All the ones they made before were better. The quality has really gone down. And I'm looking at them like, I think they're fine. I don't know. Like, I wasn't like completely blown away by anything, but I thought they were solid.
Yeah.
So I was a bit surprised that people really disliked these. I think I gave all of them a score above 5. I think I gave them between 6 and 9. And the one I gave the 9 was the Ember, which people thought was really underwhelming. I think it's fucking cool. This is one of my favorite Immortals, I think.
So when I looked at it, like every time, like you know me, I love to complain, Cinder, and that's my forte. If I could have a specialty in life, it would be complaining. I feel like with every Immortals chest, there's at least one that I genuinely just don't like, whether it be the actual item or the effect. This one, I liked all of them. So I completely agree. I thought this was a really good chest. I love, like, Pugna finally gets something that looks crazy. I think that's really cool. Now, it's funny that Lion gets, like, his 5th or 4th Immortal or whatever it is. Yeah. So if you put them all together, he looks like a League of Legends character on crack or something.
I have a decked out Lion. So I made this analogy with this Lion that I still stand by. When you put all the, like, rarest, or they're not all the rarest, right? When you put on all the Immortals,
yeah,
I said it looks like, if you imagine you ask an 8-year-old that you tell an 8-year-old you can put whatever you want on your pizza, and they'll be like, oh, I want gummy bears and salami and ice cream. You know, that's kind of that set. Like, nothing fits together. It doesn't match at all, but each individual piece looks cool. And I still have all of them equipped just because I think it's funny. But
what do you think
aesthetically, it's not very good.
What do you think the reaction would be if that came out 6 years ago? All of those items.
Every item.
Well, if this happened 6 years ago.
Okay, you need to specify. Do you mean each individual one or the whole deck?
The whole deck.
I think people would not be satisfied. They would look way too far from original.
Yeah. I think the horns make me really jealous. I want to put that fucking head on Centaur now. Like, that makes Centaur look so god-awful by comparison, you know? But yeah, I like the items quite a bit, and the effects as well. So kudos.
And now for the important part. Did you get Ember?
No, I didn't.
I got it in my 9th treasure.
Wow, that's impressive. Looks
and
like
then
Gaben's
I got another one
you.
in my 36th, I think.
Wow, congratulations, Cinderin. Did you get the others as well, I assume?
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a couple of each, I think, outside of those.
Oh, a couple of. I thought I was lucky. Okay, good.
Now, so the thing is, people are like, I feel like people don't look at the odds that much, and I'm curious about it every time. So when there's like rares or very rares or whatnot, I check the odds, and
Yeah.
you just see the wording very rare, and in your mind you're like, oh, I got lucky because I got the very rare. But when you get to your 20th treasure, which I think is, what's that battle pass level, like 350 maybe, or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not even, you have a 1 in 6 chance of getting the very rare, right?
Yeah.
So if you know you open anywhere between these like 20 and 40 treasures, you will get every very rare unless you're super unlucky. And then the only one that's truly rare is the Ember Spirit, where when you open like 25 treasures, you still only have a 1 in 66, right? So it's like 1.5% of getting it on that treasure, and then it's a little bit better every time. So
yeah, feels good that you can see the odds. I think they had to do that for legal reasons because of some country, right? Some specific country needed it. It's like Norway or
there was
something.
I think it was implemented in maybe EU law actually for treasures, or like these loot boxes that you need to be able to tell the odds. I'm not 100% sure. They had it in China beforehand, I think. I seem to remember that it was in the Chinese client because they had laws about it earlier or something.
Okay.
So porting it over must have been pretty easy for them to do. I did go back. I got one of these random chests from the Rylai wheel, I think. And you know the button that you press to see the odds, right? This like arrow that curves up next to the rarity.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't press it on that item or on that chest. So I think it's either Valve made a mistake or the law is not retroactive, because old treasures you still can't see the chances on.
Ah, I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think it's only going forward. Something I just noticed, by the way, this is very random. The Dazzle one has 2 Aghanim scepters hanging down as his hair.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Like locks. I didn't notice that until now. That's
That
interesting.
sounds cool.
Okay,
Very
one last
nice.
question about this treasure. What do you think was which one was least impressive to you? Which one do you like the least?
Well, based off of memory alone,
I'm curious if we overlap.
What was Warlocks again? Oh, that was
he has the
lantern.
They're like rings that are circling around. Yeah,
probably Warlock.
Okay, for me,
you're talking about the effect, or the item?
Just the item, the way the item looks. I think Grimstroke was the one that scored the lowest. I mean, it's still cool, but
I think the effect is really cool. But yeah, the item, I like the item because it's got like this. I know what you mean. It's a little more subtle than the other ones for sure. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Cinderin. And there's a couple elephants today. One's a hippo. One's actually a gargantuan hippo, which we'll get to next. But this one is Morokai. People absolutely fucking hated it. So let's just discuss what the mode is for people that don't know. Then we'll talk about what people said, and then we'll talk about our thoughts. So it's essentially a regular game of Dota. Each side gets a beast called Morokai. I don't remember even what the lore is at this point, which is, to be fair, it is just a remodeled year beast, I believe. And
yeah, I think so.
And these little gems or coins or whatever you want to call them, you can see them on creeps. And if you kill the creep, what are they called?
Essence.
These essences drop from these creeps, and you can see them ahead of time.
I call them balls, though, so you can call them balls.
Good.
It's fine.
And your team is supposed to collect as many as you can, and you can upgrade your beast. And as a team, you just do that individually, and it helps buff the beast. Which, in theory, like that sounds pretty cool. The whole regular Dota thing is a whole nother story, I suppose. But you just play an entire game of Dota with this. It's like a super creep, like the old super creep mode in Dota. It picks a random lane. You follow it. It has spells. It buffs stuff, etc., etc. So the community, this feels like a dire tide, almost. They absolutely hated it. They didn't like the fact that it's a regular game of Dota, just a full game. They would rather it probably be turbo mode or something like that. The fact that they're bringing up Siltbreaker, like, wow, look at Siltbreaker, which took all this work, and he put this just regular game of Dota with a couple differences and call it a day. But it's a little bit ironic because people didn't like Siltbreaker back in the day, if you think about it.
Yeah, they were. I think it's a little bit dangerous always to say people, right? Because it really.
Sure.
Like, Reddit is.
They're people.
Yeah, it's true. Some of them. The thing is, obviously, when it comes to like Reddit and stuff, you will have moments of like vocal minority, right? That are really passionate about it. If there's a group of people that really hate something and the rest are like, meh, okay, then the people that hate it will make a big deal out of it, and the others will not actively argue against it because they don't really care. You know what I mean?
Or they don't want to get downvoted.
You don't have like. Yeah,
It's a hive
or
mind.
that like you don't have like that counter force that just makes it, no man, you guys are wrong. This game is fucking great.
Right.
Because what I remember about Siltbreaker was that there were a lot of people that really liked it, myself included. I thought it was very fun, and we were a group of people playing it. The primary criticism was that the map was really difficult to play in if you queued alone, because if you got one guy that had no idea what he was doing, he would break the group. Because it's like doing a hard boss in World of Warcraft, and you have one guy who's never played the fight before, and he just fucking wipes the raid over and over,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And that's kind of what it was like. So you needed experienced people, but for people that found groups and found people to play with, largely what I heard and experienced was that people actually enjoyed it. But yeah, it was not very well suited for solo queue, so that was a weakness of that mode. About about Dire Tide, did people not like that? Since you said this was like Dire Tide,
Well, it's
because I
like
don't
Dire Tide in
really.
the fact that once Dire Tide came out the first time and then it didn't before, people got enraged. I'm just talking about like
Oh yeah,
the fact that the community feels like it's coming together in anger.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So about this map, I think it's difficult. I feel like it's difficult to predict because some of the criticism I think in the past from some people, right? If Valve reads Reddit and used that as feedback, right? Some of the feedback I think on maps like Siltbreaker has been it's too far from Dota. We're playing Dota. We want to play something in Dota, and Siltbreaker was like an RPG, right? Kind of with like characters going through the world and finding and completing quests and stuff. And maybe Valve thought, okay, we're going to take it in the other direction. We're going to try to keep it close to Dota, but still spice it up and make it interesting. And you know, it's really hard to predict what the reception will be because I think maybe with some tweaks to this, it could have been received a lot more positively.
Mm-hmm.
Just the concept itself of letting people play Dota. The primary feedback I've seen from people is when we play these battle pass modes, we want either something really unique or we want it to be like more casual. You know, they want it to be in turbo so the games are faster because they feel like, wow, we play 50 minutes of this Dota game that's like Dota and then we get nothing. Because let's be real, largely a lot of people play these custom modes for the battle pass point.
Yep.
But the points, as far as I understand, when you lose are terrible. When it came out, they were bugged, so you didn't get your bonuses either. And that's something that will upset people, right? Because they felt like, we've waited for this. It's kind of delayed from what they were expecting. And then when it comes out, it doesn't even give the points. So they just feel like time is ticking and they're not getting their points, right? They want to reach a certain amount before the event ends so they can get their whatever sets or treasures that they're trying to achieve. So I think it's just like this clusterfuck of the mode doesn't appeal to a lot of people. Then it was bugged. Then some people were also disappointed in the treasure. Then the point system didn't work correctly. Then there was a bug with Lifestealer that just totally broke the game. That was hard to predict. You could infest the Morokai and sell its items and get like infinite gold minute 20. And I played one game of this mode and I had that guy in my team and I was like, I'm not playing it again until it gets fixed. So I played it one time.
Right.
Because I was like, what's the point? It's just stupid, right?
That's weird. I played Lifestealer. Didn't have. I
so-
must have played it after they fixed it then.
Did you try?
Yeah, I picked them just to try to see if I could go inside and like surprise people, infest out, and
Okay.
I didn't think it would be bugged, but I couldn't click on it at all.
Okay, maybe you played it after the fix then. But yeah, there was.
All right, so how about this? And I think also we kind of mentioned this before, but people also didn't like it based on the pure fact alone that obviously this. Let's be real, this didn't really take much time to make, versus something like Siltbreaker, which is like feels like a brand new game. Fair to say. That's right. So, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so
like, do you agree?
I don't think. I want to say first, I don't think there's necessarily like. For me, it's not about how much effort Valve puts into the game. It's about, is it fun? Like, if they can make a really fun game without much effort, great. If they can make a really fun game with a lot of effort, great. Generally, there is a correlation between how much effort you put in and how good the product is in the end. But, like, if they could have made a simple revamp of a different game mode from the past where they just changed some things and spiced it up a little bit and made a great game, awesome. Like, I don't necessarily want them to invent something crazy every year. That's not a problem for me. As far as this mode goes, like I said, I only played one game. I didn't find it particularly interesting. Something I really disliked that I think a lot of people were also upset about is that the map has a lot worse FPS, which is actually just annoying. I think I tanked 50 FPS on performance or something because of the rain weather and something else going on. I was streaming at the time, but still,
and it uses the battle pass terrain as well, and the Dark Willow announcer pack. So I think a lot of people also were kind of turned off by this. Like, It was almost like an advertisement, it felt like to some people. From like, these are just battle pass things and we're forcing you to use them almost. I don't know.
I'm trying to think back how I would rate this compared to other custom events. I think my favorite events in the past have probably been Siltbreaker. I really liked that. But I know a lot of people didn't, and I have no problem with that.
Right.
I liked, what was it called? Wraith Knight? Is that what it was called? The tower defense one?
Yeah,
Was super good, which Frosted was kind of a revamp of, but I actually, in my memory, Wraith Knight was a bit better. But Frostivus was still great too. What else have we had? Dire Tide is probably... There's the Dark Moon...
Oh, I love Dark Moon. Yeah. So I think Wraith Knight, Dark Moon, and there was a third one that was similar to those that I really liked. Siltbreaker, I wasn't a big fan of just because I'm just not an RPG guy. That's just, we've already talked about this ad nauseum. I never liked Dire Tide at all. I didn't understand why anybody liked it. And it's funny that people get mad about Morokai because Dire Tide technically was kind of like the same thing if you think about it in some ways, right? It's very similar. It's just a game of Dota and then it has a little twist.
Yeah. I guess the expectations have gone up or changed, right? Because Dire Tide was the first custom mode we got. So.
Yeah, that's fair. And it's funny when finally they brought it back, people were like, I guess it wasn't so good anyway. It wasn't so good to begin with. So my reaction...
if they put Dire Tide in the game now, people wouldn't like it very much.
Yeah, of course. It actually might even be a mod right now. I don't know. But for my reaction, Morokai, so usually I'm the very negative one. I'm actually going to be a little bit more positive here, but I'm going to start with the negative parts. Obviously, it's a game of Dota, so that's a big turnoff, I think, because I really like these mini games like Wraith Knight, for example, and Dark Moon. Those are like top tier for me.
Somebody in chat just said Underhollow was good. Where would you rate that?
Which one was Underhollow?
That's also kind
again?
of Dota-like. It's the one where you play in groups of whatever, is it 3 or something, and then it's this battle royale where you clear rooms and find items, and then it's about being the last team standing in the end.
Oh right, yeah, that was okay.
Last year. Was that last year's battle pass?
Yeah, that was last year, I think.
Okay. I would still rate that below the other ones, like Wraith Knight and Siltbreaker.
Yeah, I love just this boss fight kind of stuff. I don't know, like anything. Anyway, what was I talking about? Morokai. So the fact that it's just a game of Dota is a big turnoff. Super creep, been done before. But I thought it was actually, like, for what it was fun. Yeah, it's kind of low effort. I had fun with it for the most part. But to be fair, I played 2 games. I'm probably never going to play it again. I have no interest. But that doesn't mean it's bad necessarily, because I feel like that's the case for most of these modes for me, other than the ones that we've mentioned that I played a lot of. But I think people are overreacting a bit, and this is why. Let's just say, even though it's subjective, let's just say it's a fact that this is a garbage mode.
Okay.
How many people, and I know there's going to be some, but I feel like it is the vast minority of people, when you buy this battle pass, how many people buy it for something they don't know anything about other than it's going to be some game mode? How many people actually buy it for that sole reason? It might be part of the reason, but it's not going to be a sole reason. And I feel like this battle pass has the best quality stuff. Like it gives you the most bang for your buck by far versus any battle pass in the past. Yeah, this mode's kind of shit, but everything else is god tier so far, right? Like the Aghs. I mean, yeah, that's a very high level, but I can only think of a couple things that are kind of meh. Like the Dark Willow announcer pack's kind of meh, but pretty much everything else is super top tier and better than any other year that I remember. And I feel like this is just whatever, like kind of an overreaction, I feel like, from the community. But maybe some people are really looking forward to it. I don't know.
It depends what you care about the most, right? And I guess to an extent, it's like if you have this expectation that you go into this battle pass that, okay, Valve is going to knock it out of the park this year. They're going to do a great job. And all the stuff that you're pointing out is good is cosmetics, right? So it's the art team that has done an excellent job, right? More than anything. And maybe people feel like maybe they feel like it's kind of a development that goes, I don't want to say lazy, because I don't know if it's the right word, but like it's going in a direction where the only thing Valve is adding to the game is hats, and there's not much else being done. It's like a culmination of multiple problems. Like the icing on the cake was that around the time Morokai came out, the servers were unstable, people couldn't queue, they were not getting their status updates from their games, they couldn't see their ranks, like integral parts of the game were just broken at the time as well. So it's like, this avalanche of everything is just going wrong. And the one thing that looks really good in comparison, of course, and which I 100% agree with, where the cosmetics of this year are amazing. But maybe some people really dislike the tendency that it feels like, well, all the good stuff and all the work that goes into this that is impressive is hats, and we want content. And most people want hats, so that's why the battle pass is selling like crazy. But some people, which are probably a vocal minority, really care about getting extra content and care about, it's almost like this feeling with a relationship with Valve where you want to see that they're trying, you want to have that feeling that, man, they love our community just as much as we love ourselves. So that you're like, you feel like the developer is part of the community. And when you look at other games, the great example right now to look at that where you need to look only in-house would be Underlords, which gets tons of communication, lots of updates, lots of like, I don't want to say maybe Easter eggs, but just like funny things. It's like there's a world of difference. And
to be fair, though, that they're in their honeymoon phase, right?
Sure,
for Underlords.
But it's what people are going to be looking at, right? They're like, Valve is a company. They're developing primarily these two games right now that we know of, and CSGO, of course. And there's just way more happening in Underlords. So what people are saying is, man, Valve surely has just let this Dota 2 ship sail. Now all of their team is working on Underlords. I don't really think that's how it's working out. It's speculation, but
I think
it's the comparison. People want, they want that all the time.
We can kind of nip that in the bud for the most part, that the whole idea of Underlords being like the way that Valve is structured. I can understand from the outside perspective when you read like their memos or whatever those things are called to actually explain what the structure is like at Valve. It's not actually 100% like that. You're not taking Dota 2 team members to work on Underlords. If anything, it's Artifact. I mean, let's be real. Like nothing's really being taken away from Dota 2. I can almost guarantee that. But yeah, you make good points, and I'm not saying anything's like nothing's black and white. Like if most people don't like this mode, fair enough. But I mean, at the same time, if it never came out, would people really complain based on how much is already coming with the battle pass in general, right?
I think it's because of the way it gets advertised, right? It gets advertised
as a
one
feature,
of the
like a
points
big
of the compendium, right?
True.
Like when you buy the compendium, it's like this game mode coming out later this, in the battle pass. It's like a lot of people felt like we bought this as part of the package. It's like, I don't know, you buy a 7-pack of whatever, and then one of them is just moldy, then you feel like, okay, well, it's still the 6 other ones are good, but I didn't buy this for the moldy ice cream or whatever.
Right. So if they had sold it as a 6-pack, you would have been happy. Ignorance is bliss is what I'm trying to say.
I mean,
right?
If they would have never advertised, no, that's the problem, right? If they didn't advertise a game mode, if they just decided we don't have a game mode this year and they just ship this without this or even advertising it, people were like, man, Valve is so lazy, they're not even putting in a game mode this year. It's like you can't win unless the game mode is good and you make it.
I disagree with that, actually. I think if we could go back and they never, I mean, some people would, sure, but I don't, for the most part, no. If they just never mentioned, I bet most people would forget about it. Like Siltbreaker was very, like you said, a lot of people liked it. I would say most people were pretty meh on it, honestly. It was not a popular mode. It felt like more of a niche thing.
I don't know the numbers. It could be that it's just like a small hardcore community that really enjoyed it. That's entirely
right.
possible.
And that could have been like a really cool, like, again, I'm not a big RPG guy. I just like the idea of them using that as kind of a test bed to see if perhaps in the future they want to make an actual Dota 2 RPG, because you have this amazing IP in Dota 2. You could just make, I mean, we saw Artifact card game. Now we're seeing Underlords, whatever the fuck that genre is. And I'm sure you could do many other games. FPS, I want to see Aghs, FPS, karate chop somebody with an axe. Culling Blade. Sounds amazing. But I don't know. I think it's overall, it's still a pretty big overreaction, though. I understand your points, and I'm not disagreeing with you. There's, like I said, it's not black and white, but the reaction is a little overboard, I think, personally. And that's coming from me, a big complainer, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the mode was pretty meh, but a lot of them have been meh in the past, in all honesty. So, before we move on, do you think there's anything they're going to do about it? Predictions? Are they going to change anything up? Or are they just going to pretend nothing happened? Like, what's the best move from Valve? I think there's definitely something they do, right? I don't think they
bug fixed, right? They hot fixed the Lifestealer issue.
Oh boy.
They fixed the Battle Pass points problem. So they're definitely like, they're fixing the bugs.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if they're going to like update the mode or give it like a little bit of an overhaul. I'm honestly, I'm not sure.
So I would say, I think
like, I don't know what you do to appease people with this mode now, right? Because
maybe there's nothing you can do. I think maybe you just come out with, and this is what Valve has been kind of doing with other games at least. maybe they just make a press release and say, hey, sorry. We're sorry we didn't like it. Either this is what we're going to do to fix it, or we're just going to give you a bunch of free battle pass points, whatever they want to do.
Yeah,
I think they probably make a post about it, but we'll see. All right. Moving on to so we talked about the elephant in the room. This is the hippo, and I know hippos are technically smaller than elephants, Cinderin, but let me tell you, hippos are more dangerous by far. So, in that category alone, I consider them the biggest of the big. All right, they're the creme de la creme. TI9 qualifiers. I want to talk about your thoughts. First of all, congratulations for qualifying through the Open.
Thank you.
You went undefeated with the terrible, terrible name of Anti-Mage, I believe. Is that correct?
It's a good name. Didn't you like the name? I think it's great.
Give me the reasoning and story behind that before we talk about the real drama here.
One of our players is called Mage, so it's like, and then we're just called Anti-Mage. Like, we don't like that guy.
Okay,
and we spelled it like his nickname.
Okay, thanks.
It was worse than you thought? Perfect.
Which maybe that's what you're going for.
Yeah.
Well, how was your
name? Nobody could come up with anything. We're like, let's just call it Anti-Mage.
Yeah. I mean, names are actually the worst. Let's be real. I came up with Digital Chaos, so I can't talk.
It's whatever. Yeah.
So how was your experience with those qualifiers?
As always, I've never really liked the open qualifiers, but in a way they're kind of a necessary evil. There's a couple of things that I dislike about them. So first of all, it's like a long series of best of ones, right? And that is what it is. If you're a good team, you should win out against most teams. But when it comes to seeding, brackets can get a little bit interesting because let's say there's 6 good teams that are playing for one slot. Inherently, one side of the bracket will be easier than the other one. And it's best of ones. So you could have 2 of the favorites face off in a best of one on the way there. And then they just don't make it, right? One of the teams doesn't. That's one thing. The second thing is the lobbies are random selection. There's no coin toss. So the game, when 10 players join, it just starts. And it's random who gets Radiant and Dire, and it's random who gets pick priority. You don't know before the game begins. So if there's a version of the game where it's considered that Radiant first pick is best, you could just get unlucky and get Dire second pick 5 games in a row.
Right.
And perhaps in the end, you will lose 1 game because of it, and then you're out. And that also really sucks. Even when we got to the best of 3 playoffs, it was still random selection every game. We didn't even, at that point, get to do side and pick selection, which I really disagree with, especially in best of 3s, where you can, like start mind gaming your opponents a little bit and strategize around how they picked last game, all this stuff. That's usually a part of the game, was just taken out. Don't like that either. And then finally, the one that I think got the most attention this time, there was one of the qualifiers where a CIS stack was smurfing. They made Smurf accounts the day before, and they signed up for the qualifiers, and they knocked out a couple of teams before it was discovered that they were CIS stack, and then they got disqualified, right? But the fact that for example, on our way through this open qualifier bracket, we claimed def win, I think 2 or 3 times, because we looked at our opponents, we checked their profiles, it's like, okay, these are 5 CIS players. We don't want to play this game because they're not allowed to play the qualifier.
Right.
But they still get to sign up in the off chance, and I believe the reason they let this happen instead of just auto DQing every team that has 3+ CIS players is, well, what if it is a team with 4 European players, but 2 of them are just playing from Russia because they're visiting family or friends or whatever it could be. Like you can't auto DQ based on current region because it doesn't necessarily correspond to where you live, right?
Right. You could just be boot camping there, in theory.
Exactly. It's like the opposite argument of the team like Aachen, who have 4 CIS players, but their org is German, and they've been playing in Germany for like months. So then they would have been auto DQ'd for being CIS, and they were completely eligible to play. So it would be like case by case. It's just annoying. And the thing that sucked is that the qualifier started at 4, right? I think our first game was at 7:30, and you're just sitting around waiting because you have to wait for the previous games to finish so you can claim your def win against the inevitable CIS team that you're going to face. Then you DQ them, and then you wait, and then you wait again, and then you finally get. So it's just so much waiting and sitting around. It sounds weird, but in a way it's more exhausting than playing.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I do that all day.
You're on, but you don't get to do anything. You're just there.
That's my everyday. I know, yeah. That's draining.
And that's what followed by is like, right? Because you're always waiting for the previous match to finish, and as far as the servers went and the platform, Face It is the best one. I think it works well. It's just these like changes would be really great to see. So we don't have, because imagine this. Let's say there's a 512 team tournament, right? And just to make it an extreme case, let's say 200 of the teams are CIS that are ineligible. And a lot of teams this time signed up because they didn't find the CIS qualifiers because it wasn't advertised very well in the platform. So they joined the wrong one and just played it.
Wow.
They basically extend the tournament by a full round, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody else just gets now to sit and wait for DQ'd matches, and it just sucks, right? So the days actually got really long because there were so many teams signed up. I think there were like 800 teams or something in the first one, and a lot of them were not allowed to play. So, yeah.
But you made it, Cinder. Congratulations, friend.
We did, yes.
Through trials and tribulations. Yes, you beat out those CIS default win teams all day long, baby.
We did get to play some games toward the end, so that was fine.
So, getting to the hippo, as we kind of alluded to, and I need you to, I'm going to tell the story, and you correct me where I'm wrong, because I just recently learned about this a couple hours ago.
Okay.
So, in the CIS qualifiers, Team GAMBIT, which, if you guys remember, was the team that was literally 1 point shy of qualifying for TI. Instead, it was Alliance, right?
Yep.
GAMBIT
needed to win that best of 3.
Right. They need to win the best of 3 at Epicenter. So they were playing a best of 1. It was at the end of this, the non-playoff stage, to whoever gets to the playoffs of the CIS region. Best of 1, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Versus who? Was it Windstrike, I want to say?
Let me see what their last best of 1 was. Vega.
Oh, it's Vega. So in a best of 1 versus Vega, basically the winner goes to the playoffs for TI qualifiers. Loser does not go to TI 100%. In the middle of the game... Okay, this is where I'm wrong then.
Okay, so this last game meant nothing to Vega. Vega were 6-0. They were guaranteed first place, and they were just playing for it. But obviously, they could knock out GAMBIT, which is great.
Yeah.
So they played for that. Okay.
So if GAMBIT wins, what happens in theory? Do they get in, or is it a tie?
Game, they get into a tie for 3rd, I think, or for 2nd even. It might have been.
Okay, so that either way they get in, because it's top 4 that go through, right?
Yeah, but it would have been a 4-way tie for 2nd, so they might have had to play like serious amounts.
So let's just make this. Let's just forget about the the details and just say, if GAMBIT wins this game, they go to TI qualifiers.
Okay,
most likely. Mm-hmm. In the middle of the game, I don't even know what the net worth discrepancy was. Alpha Ninja dies on, I want to say it's Slark.
Morphling.
He was Morphling and turned into Slark. That's why I thought it was Slark. And he types GG, quits the game, and the team concedes. Just like that. And the game was not over yet. He had buyback. What am I missing here, Cinderin?
This was not the last game. It was earlier in the tournament, but the thing did happen. Like, I checked the...
Did I get every detail wrong?
Not really. You just mixed up 2 things, kind of.
All right. Tell me the actual story then.
It was in their series. I believe it was the game against Windstrike.
Okay, it was against
Windstrike. This
game
has a Slark and a Storm. Yeah, it was against Windstrike, but it was not the final game. It was in the... I think after this game, they were either 3-2 or 3-3. But they were 6k gold behind. Morphling is in the enemy jungle, gets 4-man ganked, is completely alone, pops all his defensives, BKB, turns into Slark, tries to get away, fails, dies, and then just calls GG and quits. And that game was absolutely not over.
Yeah, okay.
And when this kind of thing happens, that's the important thing to think about. It's not just you lose the game. It's how does this affect the team for the rest of the qualifiers? Like, morale. Do you trust this guy? When you're making calls in the game, are you like subconsciously worried that, oh, we have to give this guy a good game because if he doesn't get a good game, he's just going to tilt again? Like, this kind of shit just breaks teams almost on the spot. And I feel like even if GAMBIT would have lost that game, but they would have just played like normal, they might have gone through because maybe they would have won one of their last games. They were not themselves against Fly to Moon that they played later at all. Like, it was not pretty. I watched that game. It was some shit, dude.
These guys were by far the favorites to win this. Like, by far. I would venture to say a majority of people will probably pick them in their compendium, including myself.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we've talked about this in past podcasts before, Cinderin, the idea of momentum and, like, the team mental health. I don't know. You can call it so many different things. Yeah. It is so important. Rage quitting in the middle of such an important game when the game's not even over yet just kills everything. I think you're exactly right.
I can't get into the mindset of doing that. I just can't.
I can't either. It's like people that go... even though this is a completely different level, people that like run down mid, for example, and feed, I will never understand that mentality. This is on a TI level scale. This is the thing you've been working for the entire year. The game's not technically over yet. You have buyback. You said it was 6K differential.
Close to over.
Yeah.
There's been like 10 times bigger comebacks
like
at
this,
TI games.
This is the biggest tilt rage quit I've ever heard of in a professional game of this stature. And I don't want to speak for anybody that's like, all I can say is what I would do as an owner of a team. That guy is kicked so fucking hard if I had control. There's not even a question. Like, that is the most toxic thing you can do. Like, I'm sure that team is just dead now, though, right? There's no way they're gonna.
People drew some analogies to what this would be like if it was in a sport, right? It's like you're playing basketball, and somebody misses a shot, and he gets angry, and he just walks off the court.
Right, and the closest thing, it's funny you say that. I was saying this on stream, like, I was saying there's no way, no professional players ever just quit on their team. Like, wait, LeBron James has actually done this several times in the finals. Actually, he just gives up, like, you can tell, but he doesn't literally walk off the court and leave the team. He's just lackadaisical, and he just sucks balls, and he gets bailed out by Ray Allen. But this is a whole nother story, Cinder. I know you're not interested, but this is like, yeah, I can't even fathom. Like, I can understand getting super tilted, super angry. Sure, it is never like a consideration to quit the game.
I mean, even this example that you bring up, was it LeBron you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, even that is softer than this, because like the analogy, if you were to draw a sports analogy, the best one I can come up with, I think, is it after 2 or 3 red cards in football that you auto lose the game. I'm not sure which one it is, but let's say your team has whatever amount of red cards it is for a disqualification, -1, okay? And then you can still win the game. Like, let's say it's even. It's gonna be hard, but you can win. And then you just have a player who's like, fuck it, and goes and tackles the judge, you know, or the, what's it called? The referee, right? He just goes and tackles the ref. Gets a red card, and he's like, fuck this, man, I'm out. Like, that's the scale this is, because not only are you personally giving up like LeBron is, but you're just, the game is over when you call GG. Like, you sacrifice your team. You call GG and leave. You can't play.
Yeah.
The rest of the team can't be like, oh man, whatever, we'll just play on as 4. Like, you can't do it. In the rules, if you call GG, the game's over. So, like, I don't know what you do to mitigate that situation. Like, I don't think you even within the rules can say, sorry, he was angry, pause, he'll come back in a moment, just wait for him, his fake GG call. Like, that also looks like total shit, dude.
Right.
Like, what do you do?
Yeah, it's just, as a teammate, I don't know what you do, honestly. And
it's gotta be so crushing for them, honestly. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, just by doing that, you kind of, as you talked about, they just weren't the same after that. Like, if you play it out and you lose, let's say you just lose that game anyway, but you play it out, guaranteed that you're going to be playing better in the next games, because the toxicity is just not to that extreme. Like, that is as toxic as it gets. I don't even know how to talk about this. It's so ridiculous. I can't believe this actually happened. I actually had somebody in the chat, and I don't think this is the case. I just want to bring this up, that some people might view this as a potential. Like, how could you get that tilted? Could he have been paid to lose? I'm like, that doesn't really... I can understand where they're coming from, thinking that's like, how ridiculous is that actually enters your mind now as a possibility for something that makes more sense than tilting, but I don't think there's any way that happened. It's just, there's no excuse though, regardless. That guy, who is it, Alpha Ninja?
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I just can't get into that mindset. And even if you're having a total shit game and you're really angry and you just, if it was a pub game, you were quitting on the spot, abandoning, that's one thing. But these are teammates that you have worked with for months, built this team with, gone to tournaments with, had good placements with. It just seems... It seems like you have no respect, kind of. It's so weird. Like, at least play for your teammates' sake. Even if your game fucking sucks and you're just ready to leave, like, at least give them the courtesy of trying to win the game or play.
Oh boy, like, Cinderin, I need your permission to talk about something. I can think of one other time something similar to this happened at TI. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
Are you okay with me saying?
Oh yeah, you can say it. It's many years ago.
Okay, so this is actually, maybe this is more unbelievable. Now that I'm so shocked that this didn't come into my mind at all when I thought about this, how ridiculous this entire situation was. Yeah. This might be the worst situation of toxicity and giving up on a team that I've ever heard of. at TI. This is qualifying for TI. What TI was this? TI2, I think? The
TI2.
Alliance? Not Alliance. TI3 or TI2? Are you sure?
This was TI. I mean, if we're talking about the same instance, we're talking about my team, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's TI2 main stage.
Okay, so I should probably tell the story because I don't know if you even feel comfortable, but you can tell me where I'm wrong. At least.
I don't mind. You can tell it first. I'll tell you if you're wrong.
Okay, well, you enjoy doing that. So TI2, who was on your team? It was you, Kabop, and who else?
Fucking Mad, Sokshka, and Funzy.
Okay, so at a certain point in the tournament, which you can fill in the details after this portion, I end up, like, I don't even know you at this point, I don't think. I think I know of you, but I don't think we've even met at that point, I want to say. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I think so.
And I'm kind of, like, I wouldn't say I'm new to the Dota scene, but I'm new to the competitive scene, at least, like, knowing people. I'm in the, like, lounge area that they had at Benaroya Hall, and Kabop comes up to me, and he starts smiling. I guess he knows of me from Dota Cinema or something like that, and he starts bragging about how he hates his team, he thinks everyone's garbage, and that he's just going to stop playing, basically. He stopped trying in the last game. I'm like, what do you mean you stopped trying? And the whole time he's like laughing about it, like this, like he's very, it was kind of an arrogant attitude to have, I suppose. And he was very happy about it. He was proud of himself. That he would literally use in TI matches, official TI matches on stage, he would play with one hand on his mouse and not even use his keyboard. He would play, like, I think was it Venomancer or something like that, with literally one hand.
He played Venom.
So what did I get wrong? That is, like, literally unbelievable at TI.
So what happened was, I think halfway through that game, it looked really bad. We were far behind. And the way I remember it, he just started going to a side lane with Veno and, like, giggling to himself and just planned Plague Wards and not play with the team at all. He just gave up, in the middle of the game.
And is this in, like, an elimination match, or?
It was an elimination match. It was a best of one on the main stage.
Best of one. Oh my god, that's so bad.
We could realistically not have won that game, but there's always the chance. And regardless, even if it looks like total shit, you play till the end or you concede, right? Like you give up as a team. You're like, we can't win. GG, congrats. Or you play not only for the sake of your chance of winning as a team, but also for the sake of the game, right? Like there's just some authenticity lost when a player isn't trying. Like, and why would you stop trying? Like, I don't understand.
I mean, that's on a ridiculous scale too.
It's crazy. Right? It's crazy. It's a similar situation. It shows something about people that when you get tilted or upset or whatever it is, like, some things can just happen. Like, I don't know if you just lose control, and you get it back later, and then you feel like an idiot. Like, maybe Afo, like, regrets it like crazy. Maybe he doesn't. Like, I don't know.
Are you talking about temporary insanity? Is that what this is?
I mean, I don't know. It's just I can't get into the mindset. That's the thing. I cannot relate. That's why it's so hard for me to talk about it.
No, I agree.
I can get upset, right? I can get upset in my games and be like, man, fuck, people are playing so bad. And sometimes in pubs, I'm like, okay, guys, are we going to play or not? Like, I'm ready to give up. If you guys want to give up, it's fine. Then you just call GG and you go AFK or whatever. But I'm not going to, like, sabotage my team or just abandon a game or, like this. I've never done it, so I can't relate to that mindset. I know a lot of pros that play at really high levels will abandon pubs once in a while because they're like, this is hopeless. Right. And I'm way more forgiving about that than if you're in, like, a team where there's way more at stake. It's with players that you've put a lot of time in with. Like, these pub players, maybe you've never played with them before, maybe you have, like, no relationship. I still think it's bad. Like, I'm not going to say abandoning games is good, but this, like, it's just a totally different ball game, right? It's a different like level of seriousness or whatnot. But this, I just don't get it, man. I really don't get it, and it's crazy.
And at TI, no less. And again, like, every TI.
Somebody else in chat, I think it was Toby actually. Toby was in chat a moment ago. Mentioned, just remember PGG and not turning up for a TI group stage game. That has also happened actually in the past. I think it was Moscow 5. I think Moscow 5 were just too late for their game. They didn't wake up. They were drinking the night before or something and didn't wake up. Something like that. I'm not saying this is a stereotype. I do believe that is what actually happened. I could be wrong. Like, maybe they just overslept or whatever it was. But I remember Moscow 5 getting a default loss in a game for being late at TI. Like, you wouldn't believe it. Like, when you think about what's at stake, what people are playing for, how much they dream of going there. This shit actually fucking happens. And
that's insane.
unreal. Like,
wow.
That's crazy.
All right. Well, that brings the Dota section to an end. Yeah, that's quite a bit of drama to unwrap, and I really wonder what's going to happen to GAMBIT, because 1 point away from making it to TI, and they don't even get to go to the qualifiers now, essentially. So they're playing the playoffs. All right. I guess we can briefly go over the Dota Underlords patch from this last week. We do have another podcast, actually, that's going to be starting to be posted on Dota Cinema as well, where we talk about this stuff in detail. I'm guessing you haven't played since you're hardcore Dotaing right now.
I played a game last night and won.
Ooh, what alliances did you go?
3 Warrior, 6 Mage, I think I had in the end.
Oh, 6 Mage is the dream.
And a Tide.
Oh, man. That's sexy, sexy beast. So they came out with a few items. They came out with a new Lord of the White Spire, which is past Big Boss 5. So you get your little number there, and so you can see it's kind of like Legend and Hearthstone, so that's cool to see. So people have been grinding that. Force Staff pushes a unit 6 cells in a random direction. I think the consensus right now is that this is pretty bad, but situationally okay, because you can kind of remove a unit that needs to be next to another unit, but it's random, so it's kind of bad.
Yeah.
Scythe of Vice is actually quite good. You equip it to a hero, and the first enemy that attacks him will be sheeped for 4 seconds, or pigged, actually, to be exact.
This seems like a really good item for backline against assassins, right?
Sure, it's just good in the front line as well against like any hunter that's hitting you from the back, because they'll probably hit you first, for example.
Yeah, or against if you have a setup where one of your units, where your board is placed so that you can probably focus fire and kill the unit within 4 seconds. That's really
that's right. And I think it's really good in 1v1 situations as well, actually, because if you're like the last 2, you can actually see where your board is set up against another guy, and you just position your unit.
Than once?
Yeah, there's a cooldown for it, so I don't remember what the actual cooldown is. So that's cool.
Okay. Yep.
There's now a big time contract, which I tried today. It's hilarious. When you equip it on a unit, that unit becomes bloodbound in addition to their other alliances. So bloodbound basically means bloodbound's like a super memey thing, right? You have Ogre, Magi, and Warlock. Those are the only 2 bloodbound units. When one dies, every other bloodbound unit gains 100% attack damage, okay? And this stacks. Yeah. So you get like a level 1 Ogre, a level 1 Warlock, and then let's say a level 3 Ogre. Those 2 level 1s die, and that big Ogre gets 200%, essentially. So you can add that buff, or you can add that alliance, I guess, to any unit, which is really cool.
This seems super strong. If you're playing Warlock anyway to have the Warlock alliance, then you can also get the Bloodbound alliance.
Yeah.
With this.
The problem is you have to have Ogre, though. That's kind of the issue.
Do you?
Yeah, it's...
Why?
Oh, no, that's true. That's true. You don't have to have them, but it makes it more... that's true.
You can have one or the other. You can have Warlock or Ogre plus this item, and then you get the alliance bonus, right? You have to assume that.
So getting the item is kind of a big if, though, obviously. But it is really cool. Like seeing it on a Terrorblade, for example, late game, it's kind of disgusting, actually. So that's cool. Shamans got changed, as we kind of talked about last time. It now requires 3 instead of 2, which is a big nerf, which means Arc Warden, Shadow Shaman, and the newly minted Disruptor. You need to have all 3, and then any enemies affected by hexes, silences, or stun will generate minus 200% mana when attacked, which... I mean, that sounds pretty strong, but the problem is you have to have all 3 of those units, which they just don't fit together. So the consensus right now is it's not very good, just because of Shamans. And a few other things were changed. I guess we can talk about a couple more. Shaman Pluck. This one's hilarious, actually. I tried this earlier today. So it's a global item, and anytime you have a Shaman that's attacked, before there was a 5% chance you turn the enemy to a chicken. Now it's 17%.
What a random number, huh?
I got 2 of these, Cinder. 34%. Anybody attacking my Disruptor turns into a sheep. It's pretty funny.
That sounds really strong.
Yeah. And we'll talk about a couple more changes that I think you would actually like these a lot. So Blink Dagger is amazing now. Think about this.
Yeah.
So when you equip a Blink, you blink to an area that's open on the other side of the chessboard or whatever. You gain 50 mana immediately, which is huge for people... Like certain heroes like Aghs. How much mana do you think Aghs has, Cinderin? Most heroes have 100.
50?
He has 50 mana. He blink calls right at the beginning of a round. It's really cool. I like it a lot. Coordinated
and its
assault
cooldown is so low that you can probably use it twice.
Yeah, in a lot of cases you can, unless you die right away. But either way, it gives like an extra 3 seconds for your backliners to do damage and whatnot.
I was thinking if you put it on, like, for example, an assassin or whatever that gets to the backlines, then they just dagger instead of blinking like or jumping like they usually would. They quickly get the mana, they kill off one of the backliners, and then 15 seconds later they can activate again on the dagger, like something like that. I don't know.
For an assassin, that's not good, I don't think, because generally they don't really need mana. And I mean,
I'm thinking about who can blink to the backline and blow things up with mana, right?
Tidehunter. Well, Coddle has 150 mana capacity now, so it's actually really bad on him.
That's too much. Yeah.
I've tried it on like Terrorblade before. Like he's just jumping from one person to the other. That's not very good. Think about this one though. This one is a bit of a meme. Arc Warden. You put blink on him. He blinks, gets half his mana, attacks a little bit to get his mana up. The Tempest Double gets created. That Tempest Double blinks.
That sounds strong.
And you just keep going and going. It's pretty interesting.
Oh, wait, the Tempest Double can use the dagger too?
Yes. It just goes over and over again.
That sounds pretty fucking broken, actually. Not gonna lie.
Arc Warden kind of sucks, though, so I don't know.
Oh, he got nerfed. Okay.
Nah, I wouldn't say he got nerfed. He was never that strong. It's a bit of a meme, yeah. All right, and then the last couple things I guess we'll talk about is just the rework to... I guess we just finish up with Warlocks. So Warlocks before were just a static... wait, did we talk about this last week? No, I don't think we did.
Don't know.
It was a static, or just a fixed amount of lifesteal that you get for Warlocks, which was really boring. So they completely got rid of that. Now, whenever you have 2 Warlocks, or 4 or 6, and they cast a spell, they form a link with an ally who has the lowest HP for 3 seconds, and either of those heroes dealing damage heals each other for 50, 100, or 150% damage. So that has been like the biggest change by far, because now everybody runs Warlocks. Everybody. You always want to have 2 Warlocks now. So pretty cool stuff. Still getting used to the meta, but some really cool changes. And I think this week, Thursday, they're coming out with a big patch again as well, where they might be putting in, I heard some rumors that they're testing the 1v1 mode that I wanted, Synderin, which I'm really excited about. So should be good. All right. So that is Dota Underlords. And now we get to the fun section, Synderin, as always. Let's see how many of these we can get to today. This question is from, is it SS Super Linus, I want to say?
Yeah, let's say that.
He tweeted at me and says, in We Say Things, could you guys maybe theorize about possible future mechanics that could be implemented into Dota? Example, talents, bounty runes, etc. Something that will change Dota's playstyle more or less. Do you think there's any... Do you have any cool ideas that you would like?
I have one idea that I thought of that could be done. Is, we have Roshan as the big boss on the map.
Yes.
We could have a second boss that was not as strong as Roche and dropped something less significant.
Okay.
And then instead of dropping the Aegis or Cheese or whatever, he could drop a shop token that you could trade in for an item, and then there's a couple of items that you can use the shop token on. You can't sell the token, so you can't get gold for it, and that means you need to choose what hero benefits from the item that you get out of this. Like, let's say the token can be used to buy a Staff of Wizardry, a Blade of Alacrity, or an Ogre Club, or something like that. Then Ogre Axe, you need to choose which of your teammates gets the token because it progresses them towards their item.
You're not kidding.
I mean, I'm not saying it's good.
No.
I thought could be implemented.
I thought you were making fun of me at the beginning because of the whole 2 Roche thing. That was my idea to begin with. Or not my idea, but I've been pushing for that.
I see people in chat being like, do you want League of Legends? Because I know in League they have Nashor, right? Which is their Roshan. And then they also have I think it's the dragon. And then when you kill the dragon X times, your team starts getting auras or buffs or something. I don't know exactly how it works. It's after I play it. But I just, when you look at the map and the layout of it, you could imagine being able to implement something more than the Roche. And I don't want 2 Roshans, right? And I think this is one way. It's also another way. If you look at the way the game has been developing, right? Over the last 3 years, Dota has tried to encourage PvP more and more and more, right? They have made Roshan more important because he started dropping extra items. So you really have to fight for this Roche. If you concede it to the enemy, they get too strong. In the past, you would have teams turtle so hard they didn't even need the Roche. You could just
Right.
defend high ground with whatever, because even if the enemy team had an Aegis, it didn't fucking matter if your high ground was strong enough. But when it starts having Refresher Shard and Aghanim Scepter, the discrepancy becomes so big, you just can't just give them away. Then we've had Bounty Runes to encourage people to meet up and fight in the river, and around the runes, every 5 minutes, action happens on the map. So if you think about like the tendency of the game, you could add extra objectives that people would want to fight for that influence the game. And I don't know if the shop token is a good idea, but I don't think having another objective to fight for is a bad idea. I think you could find a way of changing the map and placing something that isn't Roshan tier, but still, worth fighting for. And maybe it spawns every like 5 minutes, maybe every 10 minutes or something. And it gives something in the game.
Interesting.
That people want to group up for. So
can you guess what mine is? Because I've been saying the same thing for literally 8-9 years now. There's several things actually.
I'm trying to remember.
So before I say anything,
not very important.
Well, that's what everybody deems it until it's put in. This is my problem. Okay, I have a very big pet peeve. I make suggestions. And it's not like these are unique ideas. These are stuff from other games sometimes. A lot of them from Han. Make suggestions. People shit on it, including pros and personalities. Then Ice Frog puts something in that's almost exactly like it. And people are like, oh my God, it's so cool. Oh my God, if only we had this early. I'm like, dude, kill me. So a lot of these have been put in the game already. So I'm going to mention stuff that has not, that I still think could actually, and a lot of these are actually for the benefit of newer players. I know that a lot of people don't want to hear that, but I think the experience for new players is very, very, very poor, more so than pretty much any game in the history of gaming on this level, at least. Getting into this game is super difficult. So I think making some concessions on my skill cap, I think could be made for the betterment of for our game and its future. Number one, I think, and I know you're going to disagree with this because it does change gameplay a little bit. I don't think Secret Shop should exist anymore. Just let us buy fucking everything at the shop, for God's sake. I'm so sick and tired of it. It's just this extra complexity. There's so many items in the game. I know this changes a little bit, but just get rid of Secret Shop, please. You can change it with an outpost.
Problem with that, actually.
Really?
I don't think that's that bad. Yeah.
Wow. Because I have some more hardcore ones to come, Cinderin. I got 3. So you don't have a problem with that one. That's interesting. Okay.
Not much, anyway. Like, what's the reasoning? Is it just to make the game easier for people to use the shop?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I feel like that's like one of the easiest things to learn. You try to buy your item in the shop, and it pings on the map where the secret shop is. It's like, go here. Here you buy your item.
Well, it's also, and I know that people don't want like a turtling meta, and this kind of helps you turtle a bit because you can buy anything at the shop, and the whole idea is you need to venture out. I understand that. I think it's a little overrated personally.
I don't. I think it would change the game less than you think. Actually.
Okay.
But
all right, number 2.
Definitely be a change.
So that's the baby step. Okay, I got a second step, and I have a fucking giant one.
Okay. Here comes the big one. Remove shops entirely.
The second one, which I know you will not like.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm not saying I care anymore really about this. It's more about the new player experience. Coming from Han, for example, showing enemy mana bars would be pretty cool. And I know this changes a lot of things for some heroes, like Kunkka. Everybody always brings up Kunkka. You can't cancel animation torrent. Guess what? Yeah. Han had Kunkka in the game and he was balanced. So there's ways to balance around this, I feel like.
Yeah, it removes some complexity, and
anti-mage becomes OP. He can see my mana.
Yeah, that's not really the problem. It's just, I think something that Dota has been putting a lot of emphasis on in general as a game in its history is the ability to outplay, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more information you present to each player, the harder it is to make these outplays because everyone has all the info all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I don't know, I clearly like that one less than the other one, and I don't really think it makes the game that much easier to play for beginners, that they can see the enemy mana. I don't think it makes the game better, honestly. Because, you can see the enemy's mana, but he can see yours too. So it's not like, it doesn't only favor the new player. In many situations for the new player, he will be favored because the enemy doesn't know his mana, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then he can be the one making the cool play where the enemy gets surprised. Like, oh, wow, he had enough mana for this, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't care that much about that one anymore. It's more, again, as a new player, I know that's something that, coming from Han, I definitely missed at first. Coming from other games, I would assume that they would miss that as well. All right, the third one.
Wrote something in chat that I really agree with. Can I just mention that?
Yes.
I think that's a good idea. give each team a courier in the start of the game. You don't have to buy it. I have zero problems with
I
this
mean,
change.
that's
I think
happening,
it's completely
right?
fine.
That's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
it's
The
been
courier
getting
is
cheaper all
25
the
gold
time.
now.
Now it's like it's 50, right? But it's like, why?
I'll tell you why. Because it's cosmetics. You want people to want to buy the courier because they want to use their cosmetics. That's literally the reason.
Well, then they could bring back courier morph, right? That they implemented and then removed.
Nobody liked it.
Well, okay, then they can't bring that back, I guess.
All right, and then the big one, Cinderin, okay. Which I know every pro I've talked to has.
Okay, what if? Listen to me. Hear me out.
Yes.
What if the courier that spawn? Okay, wrong word. Okay, just hear me out. Not listen to me. Hear me out. What if when the game starts, the courier is just assigned to a random player? So there's a 1 in 5 chance when the game starts that you are the owner, and therefore you get to choose what it looks like. How about that then?
So it's going to be artifact.
So no, but technically when you buy the courier, right, in the game, if you have like a cool courier you want to show off and use in the game, you're not going to buy that courier if you're the carry in the game. You're going to buy it if you're support. So the people that lose, if you will, on this are the people that always play support and always buy the courier. They get less representation of their cool courier. But the people that play core might suddenly get interested in having a cool courier because now their courier could be shown in the game. So like overall, I actually think it would increase how much people care about couriers.
All right, Valve, because you heard it here first. Shown, Cinderin, right?
I don't know.
They need to make a courier in your honor with your face on a donkey.
Okay.
Or just use a donkey.
As long as I get proceeds for it. I had no problem with my face being in the game if it makes me money. Let's go.
Excellent. All right, so the last one, the big step, Cinderin, and I know we've talked about this literally 8 years ago at this point. Make the map symmetrical.
I didn't know you 8 years ago.
Close to it. Make the map symmetrical so that both sides are the same. You have 2 Roche pits. Roche alternates spawns in each.
Mega disagree.
I know you disagree. I think this is really good for new players because if you learn like to pull or stack in one side, you'll automatically know the other side. The Roche alternating, I really like that idea personally. That's probably the bigger one for me. Just having the Roche pit on each side of the map so you don't know which one.
Random one.
Like you can do it any way you want, but in theory, he spawns in one, which is random to start with, and then each time he dies, he spawns in the opposing.
How about Roche is like a 2-phase boss fight, and when you get him to half HP, he digs under the ground and appears in the other Roche pit, and you need to go and kill him there.
That's pretty good.
What do you think?
That's,
I think that's great.
I'm sure you need to be separated.
There's no team that ever wants to start Roche, because then the other team's just waiting in the other pit to kill him.
That's pretty good, actually. So nobody kills Roche. You could just delete Roche and make the same effect out of it. All right, so why don't you like the symmetrical?
Okay, so I think.
Well, let me tell you what most people tell me that I disagree with. I'm not saying I'm going to disagree with what you say, but the thing that I definitely disagree with, people think it becomes stale. I don't think that's the case at all. Because what makes the game interesting in lanes is not the fact that they're different. It's the fact that every hero composition is going to feel different because there's so many heroes in the game that do so many unique things. So that point I completely disagree with. So go ahead.
Yeah, I don't agree that it would be stale either. I just think again, you do if you want to make it an equation or whatever, is this like simplicity worth the flavor that you lose, right? Because what it ends up happening if you mirror the map and you make everything symmetrical, like you said, is that it's suddenly like how you place your lanes or how you move or like how you itemize or something. It changes everything in the game because specific spots that are good for something are now gone or exist on both sides. The way you choose to take fights, the way you try to bait your enemy into an unfavorable position that is only there on, like there's just. I get the idea that it's maybe complexity that's a bit complicated for new players to deal with, that the map isn't symmetrical, but at the same time the game is so hard that this is like the smallest problem for new players compared to how much depth it adds at a high level. It's like if you make the map symmetrical, that's not what's hard in Dota, in my opinion. It's not that, oh, there was a tree here and there isn't one on the other side, or oh wow, there's a high ground here. Like you can see it, and beginners are going to make 2 million mistakes rather than, oh, I walked into the wrong high ground. Like it's something that is really appealing and really cool for skilled players, and that I think makes zero difference to beginners. Like I actually don't think it matters.
You don't think Radiant versus Dire makes any difference?
It makes a big difference on a high level, but for beginners, I think if you mirror the map, I don't think it will change that much about the win rates. I think if you're talking about how Radiant has a much higher win rate in all skill brackets, I think it's because of the nature of how you play the camera. And maybe, I don't think it's because Radiant's map is better than Dire's. It has different strengths.
Well, in some patches it is, though, right?
Yeah,
Especially in the past.
Of course, it's hard to balance. Like one side will be better than the other, and then you rebalance it. Just like some heroes are better than others, and then they get rebalanced. But if you completely mirror the map entirely, and take that part out of the game, maybe for the sake of balance, it's good in terms of the like it is identical to play Radiant or Dire. Then if you even flip the camera, so Dire is playing from bottom left as well. Is that what you're thinking?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have the same camera view. Definitely, it would change win rates for sure. But I just don't think. I don't think it makes the game better.
Can you give me like just one specific example of how it would be bad for pros? Just out of curiosity.
All right, let me just start a game.
Oh, great. Can't wait for this.
No, I know, because this what's interesting about this is we've talked about stuff in the past, and I'm like, man, this doesn't sound good, and then it gets implemented, and it's not so bad after all. Like things like cooldown reduction, spell amplification, these things where people are just, you're just used to something.
Like I have to tell you, there are so many features from Han that have just been slightly changed, so it doesn't look like it's a carbon copy, that are now in the game that people love. So it's just interesting. Like whether you agree or disagree, that's fine. I'm not saying I'm right by any means, right? It's more about it's just interesting to talk about how well, first of all, I think there was a big stigma before where people just didn't want stuff from other games. Now it's not as prevalent, I suppose, since there's only one other game. But you can learn from other games. That's what Dota has done. Like talent trees. You think that they just made that up? That's from literally like Heroes of the Storm had that shit.
Heroes of the Storm, yeah.
So
that was a great implementation. I have no problem with talents. I thought it was a good addition to the game.
Yeah, but like I said, like if I brought that up a week before it came out, most people would say it's garbage. That's my point.
You know what? I'm not going to give you a concrete example of where it's like game breaking or makes a huge difference for the teams. It's just like, let's just use the argument of what it feels like to play in the world, right? Like if you're playing the game and both sides are identical and there's like no difference between it, I just feel like the gameplay, it's not, I don't buy the stale argument, but you know what I mean when I say it's like it loses flavor on like these like areas or subtle differences in the map where you can do something cool and the enemy team can't, or
no, I understand.
You have this little advantage here and they have this little advantage here. And a lot of the time when it comes to Dota, right, the thing I love about the hero balance of this game, if we can expand the argument a little bit, you could take the argument and also say, well, we should balance the heroes so that heroes are more similar, so there's less differences, right, and they're more closer to each other, so it's more balanced.
Don't give me that slippery slope mentality crap.
Because the reason I'm saying this is that that's how League has historically balanced their heroes, right? Like they have balanced heroes around streamlining them so that they're closer in strength, and then something is a little bit better than the other one, and therefore it's the best hero. Where in Dota, everything is broken, and therefore, like every hero is imbalanced in its own way, and that's fun. It's because no matter what hero you play, you have these cool moments, right?
It's not a slippery slope. That's what I'm saying. Things have already been added over time. But I mean, these are big changes, though. I won't lie. Like those are not small things.
This to me is the feeling I have about this map, is that the differences and the places where one team is stronger than the other or has advantages, that's Dota. That's the game, is about outplaying your opponents on the strengths of your composition and your map compared to the other teams. And I feel like that is a really integral and big part of the game. And I think this change for me, compared to everything else you've suggested in the past with like, I don't know what you suggested in the past that got implemented with like, I think maybe you suggested spell amp or cooldown reduction in the past to me, where I was like, I don't know, maybe.
Well,
this one
implementation of like a shrine, for example, was definitely brought up before. Not exactly the same, but similar.
I think this is a much bigger no. I mean, I'm still going to play the game if they put it in, right? Like, of course, it's not like I'm going to veto this game, but I just strongly believe it does not make the game better.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Well, that was my more hardcore change anyway. So
yeah, that one is
escalation there. Okay, interesting.
We can do the opposite just quickly. I saw a comment in chat that I very much agree with, because we've talked about things that have been implemented that people liked, and in the end they were big fans of. I would love to remove status resistance. I think it's an experiment that was put in the game, and I think it failed. I don't like it. I don't think it's good.
Really? Why?
I know it gives like the player other options and more like, in a way, complexity with item builds and stuff you can do, but it has inherently just really shook up the game in a direction that I think it's one of the primary reasons that hero balancing has been difficult lately compared to in the past. Because imagine you build this game where you balance this game around spells strengths, spells damage, duration for 10 years. And now suddenly you enter a mechanic that can change the way every spell in the game affects any hero. It's really it takes time for people and the pros, like all players, to get used to, but it's like the way this influences the game, I don't think it makes the game better. Like you could imagine a lot of things you could put in the game that you could put in and you could play with and the game would still work, but it doesn't make it better. And to me, this is one of them. I have never been a fan of the status resistance, and I still don't like it after playing with it for months. I think
interesting.
You can do something else to, if you feel like stuns were getting OP or whatever, there's many ways you can deal with it, right? Instead of getting this like status resistance, you could have damage reduction items, which we don't have very much of.
Isn't that a way to just say, like, the way that I think about it from a very broad standpoint, the reason status resistance was put in is because the only way to really do anything about spells is to get a BKB. It's BKB this, BKB that. It's like the only item. And status resistance, you can get it through items or through skills.
I mean, yeah,
I kind of like it.
But I personally don't think Aeon Disc is a bad item design. That's a way of breaking a stun combo, right? Like you have an item that gives you damage immunity and purges off a stun. I have no problem with hard dispels. That's a counter to stun. Like you could make items that have hard dispel and make them expensive. Something like this. Or, you could have more items with lesser dispels, like Lotus Orb is also a great item. I think it's really fun and it adds a lot of plays to the game. Status resistance, it's just... Maybe this is a bit of a bad explanation. I'm not sure if you're going to follow this argument. Do you feel like it adds a play in the game? I feel like status resistance doesn't add a play. It takes one away. Does that make sense?
It makes the game easier for people like me, so it adds that play.
That's how I feel about it. It's like you're not really counterplaying the opponent as much as you're just nerfing the way their heroes work.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, I get that point.
Whereas Lotus Orb is, a skill item. You trick your opponent. You surprise them. You reflect.
Let me put it this way: if they deleted status resistance, I wouldn't even surprise me that much. Honestly, it's not like an integral part of the game, right?
Yeah,
they can balance it in any way that they choose. For me, if I could delete one thing that was put in, it would be Lion. Fuck that hero. Hero sucks. God, I hate playing against it. I hate playing against that hero.
Remove Lion.
Dude, Impale always hits, or Earth Spike it's called now, always fucking hits. Mana Drain is like 10,000 goddamn yards away, whatever you want to yards, Imperial system coming for you, units away. And it slows now. Like, what is this garbage? This hero is the worst. Okay.
This is like the easiest disagreement, I think. What the fuck do you mean? If you
I hate that hero.
Remove techies then, man. Like, what the hell?
That's true. Techies is...
There's no way.
Well, let me put it this way.
If you remove any hero from Dota, it's a given that's that hero. There's techies... It's not even close.
But for me, I don't know about your games. Techies isn't picked that often in my games. Lion is literally every... I have to actually ban him every game because I just cannot stand people playing this hero at my level, which is not good.
I guess it's a fun support, right? It feels like it's fun to deal damage, okay? It's fun to kill shit.
No, it's the Slacks mentality. It's mental warfare. You're tilting your opponent by being the most annoying fucking hero in the entire game. Other than techies.
That's techies.
Other than techies.
Lion is not even top 20 on that list, I think. For me.
Top 20. Good lord.
He's not even up there. There are way more heroes that are way more obnoxious.
All right, let me put this on a list for later.
Related, right?
Tier list of most annoying heroes in the game. Okay, we'll do that in a future episode.
That sounds fun, actually.
All right, so I think
we're gonna disagree so hard. That's gonna be fun.
I'm sure Lion will be number one. Spoiler.
Yeah.
All right, that brings this episode to an end, Synderen. We got a lot of topics to go in the future episodes, so we'll save those. Any last words for everybody out there watching, listening? Have you watched In Bruges yet?
No, I have not. I have not watched In Bruges.
Okay, thank you.
I think my last word is, if you truly think Lion is the worst hero to play against in the game, just keep playing the game and your opinion will change. That's it. Thank you. The reason you hate this hero is because you don't play the game enough.
Synderen, just because I'm a god at Underlords and Artifact, okay, doesn't mean you can talk down to me like a scrub. Okay, I used to be 5K years ago.
I think my win-loss against you in Artifact is pretty good when we played.
What? That's a complete bullshit. I'm going to message somebody in Artifact team right now.
Do it.
Wait, there's nobody. All right, until next time. Suns fan and signing out. Oh, I feel bad now. Oh no, that's like putting down an ex that I still love somehow. You know. Oh, dear God. All right, goodbye, friends. I'm so sorry, Artifact. I'm so sorry.